today I'm going to be talking about a technique that bodybuilders use to build muscle, and we're going to be using it to help us turn faster. If you're new to these videos, my name's James. I am a movement coach specializing in the brain and nervous system. I work with people of all different backgrounds and skills, but a lot of my lifelong experience has been through sports, circus, competition, and performance. So I like to take all of the things I've learned from the sports and performance world and see what I can inject back into cubing to see if we can make improvements to our times through physical processes rather than through techniques and algorithms. And the concept we're looking at today is a bit of a weird one. It's called blood flow restriction. And as I said in the intro, it's a technique that bodybuilders use in order to get physically bigger muscles. And basically, as a technique, kind of does what it sounds like. You're going to restrict the amount of blood that is getting to certain muscles and certain tissues so that when you start to exercise them, they have to learn how to become more fuel efficient. So once you kind of strap your arm up, you get less glucose and oxygen running down to your hands. That means your hands and fingers are going to need to work out how to optimize themselves to become better at moving and turning at high speeds without having as much fuel as they normally do to coordinate this. So over here I've got my little blood flow restriction armbands. If you do want to try this kind of thing, I recommend buying the specialist bands. They usually are a little bit stretchy, and that means you're not going to cut off the blood flow by too much. And while it's not exactly very difficult to describe what you're going to do, there's a few safety considerations to make sure that you're doing it effectively. So one thing we don't want to do, as I said, is cut off the blood flow entirely, because that will not be good for any part of your muscles or tissues at all. So when it comes to putting these things on, I'm going to just give a little demo on the left side here. You want to get it nice and tight, but again, not so tight that we start to cause ourselves pain. Okay, so I'm going to pull this pretty tight, and I'm first of all just going to examine it. If it already feels physically uncomfortable, that's a pretty good sign that I've done it too tight. Now, if I hold my hands out, you can already see that there is a change in the color here as I'm restricting the blood flow. But there's a few other tests that you can do to make sure that you're keeping things sweet the whole way along. So the first is just going to be around sensation in general. So if you start to feel any kind of pain, any numbness, any tingling, anything negative at all in your hand or your arm, that's a sign that it's either been too tight or it's been on too long at that tightness, and you either need to loosen it off or just take it off entirely. So negative experiences do not equal good in this case. Even if we're talking about bodybuilders where they're used to pushing through the pain, this is not one of those cases where they do that. The pain means stop. Okay, hope we're clear about that one. The second one is to give yourself a little timing test for the hand. So one of the things you notice with this hand being a lot more kind of pink or red, when I press down on my hand, you'll see like a little white residue when I take it away, okay, which you don't see so much on this hand. When this hand still kind of appears, but it disappears fairly quickly. If I press this down for a count of 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I should see the color return in at least a count of 6 or less. Okay, so when I do that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I'll count 1, 2, 3, 4. If it's still white at 6, again, that means we've left it on for too long. Finally, in most of the research I've looked at for this, they kind of talk about 20 minutes being the maximum amount of time. I very much encourage people to even half that. You can get quite a lot of benefit from this kind of training just doing in a 10-minute block. You don't have to push it for a huge amount of time. So that's kind of the safety stuff. After that, it becomes pretty simple. All we're gonna do is solve. Okay, so I'm doing one-handed here just because I've only put the one on, but obviously two-handed, whatever, is going to work. And you want to practice trying to be as precise with your turning as you possibly can. Okay, so you don't have to go as fast as you're able to go. You want your focus to be on precise and precision turning. I'm probably not giving it a very good example while I'm trying to talk at the same time, but really it's just doing some kind of solves. Or if you wanted to, you could also look at the warm-up video I gave. All of those exercises can be really useful for just getting the muscles and muscle fibers working through their full amount of range. But I don't think you can go too wrong with just kind of regular solving. Once you've done your 10 minutes, you're going to take the bands off and leave it a day. Come back a day or two later, see, do you actually feel like you've got a little bit more control over your turning? This is one I tried a couple of years ago, and I found it did make everything feel a lot smoother. While I wouldn't necessarily say I got a lot faster, what I did see was my bad days, like the days where it felt like I was like churning through butter trying to turn the cube, they diminished greatly. So the difference between my good days and my bad days was a lot more reduced. And I haven't got to have a huge amount of data from other Speedcubers yet, but when I've done this for other athletes who do a lot of kind of like dexterous work with their hands, I found them report that actually they have seen speed increase. So I don't think that it's impossible to see that either. Anyway, that is pretty much it when it comes to blood flow restriction. So let me know what you think of this one. Is it something that would you try, or does it feel a bit too scary? I'm gonna do another video a little later around breathing, and it's another way that you can use the same kind of fuel restriction to optimize turning. So if you don't like the idea of cutting off blood flow, then stick around for that video in the near future. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.